Welcome to another episode of 90 Minutes of Wisdom, a channel dedicated to helping you expand your knowledge and develop a more successful and peaceful mind. My guest today is an intuitive energy balancing practitioner that lives in Ladner, British Columbia. She is a certified emotion code practitioner, past life regression therapist, angel guide, and Ho'oponopono practitioner. Welcome to the show, Selena Jones. Welcome, Selena.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you. It's so good to be here and connect with you like this.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you as a guest. It's so impressive. I mean, I've cut out some stuff because I could go on and on. It's like really, really cool. Really amazing. To start, I would like to ask you, so that by definition, what is an intuitive energy balancing practitioner?
That is a good question because your career counselor at school didn't suggest you go into that, right? um, so the word intuitive is in there because so much of, I do energy work essentially, and it's intuitive. It's talking to and listening to the universe. So there's always an intuitive piece. I am clairvoyant. I can see the energy around people. I can see the guides and that sort of thing, but it's all intuitive. And then an energy balancing practitioner. So an energy balancing practitioner, the goal of all of the work that I do is we're balancing you. We're balancing the energy that's flowing through you physically, emotionally. When you're in balance, your body will heal better. It will respond better to whatever other medical therapies you're doing. Emotions will settle, things like that. So we're looking to get your energy in balance. And there is simply just an intuitive aspect about it. So that is, in a nutshell, that is an intuitive energy balancing practitioner.
Okay, amazing, amazing. So we're going to go thank you for that. That's a very cool explanation. And we'll kind of go through these things maybe at the beginning, just point by point, if you don't mind, because I would like the clarity, and I'm sure the listener would as well. So certified emotion code practitioner. Tell us about that.
So the emotion code is a fantastic healing technique. And, I've done the big certification course, but it is something that anyone can learn how to do. There's actually a self-help book that originally came to me, divinely, most definitely showed up in my lap. And I read the book, I learned how to do it and went, oh my goodness, like this blew my mind, the results I was seeing. So I went on with it, but anyone can learn how to do it. And the basic concept of emotion code. When we talk about, again, energy balancing, the energy flows through our body, comes in generally through the crown, from God, source, universe, whatever everybody's happy calling it, flows through your body, goes out your hands, out your feet, into the earth. Some people flow in reverse, but that's the most common. And we know that the world is made of energy. Physics tells us everything is made of energy. Emotions are energy. So we all know what it's like to walk into a room where people have been fighting, right? You can feel those emotions. And so when you can actually see an emotion, they're often balls of energy, about that big. And in a day, we experience a ton of emotions. Usually we process them and we let them go. But there are definitely times when we don't let them go and they get stuck. So it's like if this is flowing like a river, you get these trapped emotions. It's like having rocks in the river stuck in your body. And emotion code is a really simple technique of identifying trapped emotions. There's a chart, and you use muscle testing, use a pendulum, and you go through the chart. You identify the trapped emotions, and it's just a simple technique of removing them. The successes I've had with it have just been wonderful, within myself, within my family, and then, within clients. So that is emotion code.
Okay, very cool. Very cool. So this technique you're able to use to help other people, and you're also able to use the same techniques on yourself to help yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I could go like on and on with 1,000 questions on that, but I just want to go through each one systematically. So let's go to the next one. Past life regression therapist. That sounds interesting.
I love doing past life regressions. So in a typical like one-on-one session with me, I'm doing most of the talking. I'm talking to your guides. I'm, just telling you who's with you. I'm okay, we're blocked here. Now let's do this. But in a past life regression, it's such an exciting or, interesting experience because it's the client that's doing the talking. I lead them into a kind of meditative state and just ask the right questions, and it opens the door to a past life coming up. And you experience, you remember the past life, and in the same way, your childhood, positive and negative, affects how you see the world as an adult. Your past life, your past lives, significant events can also affect how you are in the world today. So we identify some of those things and can work on healing them, and maybe seeing some of the common people that you've had past lives with. So that's a just I really enjoy them. I love sitting with clients going through past life regressions, and it provides so much healing and so much background for people to go forward with.
Okay, cool. And before we move to the next one, I do want to ask you just on that subject, because I was having a discussion with some people recently, and one is about soul groups, right? And so I guess you kind of have firsthand knowledge of that we live in these soul groups or come back and reincarnate in these soul groups. Am I right in saying so?
Yeah, for the most part, absolutely. So I have also had kind of the blessing of being able to see people of all different backgrounds, from religious to cultural, English not being the first language, sometimes, having translators, the whole thing, all ages and all the rest. And there's just some really great common threads that kind of I see over and over and over again. So we do tend to, when we go back into past life, we will often see some reoccurring characters. Oftentimes it's the people who play an important role in this life. You'll see them in a past life, maybe in a different role. My husband has been, this time we're romantic partners. I've seen us as, fighting on a battlefield together, kind of partners in arms, that sort of thing. I've seen other lifetimes where, due to a class system, we couldn't be together. So this is our lifetime, to be together, right? In a romantic way. So it's sometimes different, but some of the important people tend to be with you lifetime to lifetime. And not everybody, sometimes you're here because you both are working on the same lesson. Sometimes the main players in your life, you have something that they can learn from, or you need to learn something from them. And so that's why you partner together. But yeah, as a soul group, we definitely have people that come together regularly.
Okay, very cool. Thank you for that. And before we move on, and we will move on, I have two more questions.
I can talk about past lives all day, Andrew.
Okay. So one of them was, from what I've learned and seen, is I believe that we pick our parents. And so would you say that's, would you agree with that statement?
I would agree with that statement, but I always like to add, but, because certainly, people have sat with me with extreme trauma as children, things like that, and say there is no way I would ever pick, this, abusive home or something like that. So yes, I do believe we choose our parents, but I wholeheartedly, like heart and soul, believe that we choose people based on their highest potential. And then people use their free will to rise to that potential or to be an abuser, things like that. So it just, from everything I've witnessed, I've experienced, and just, myself as a whole, the idea of seeing a child being victimized and saying, well, they chose that just doesn't work for me. I very much feel that we choose people based on our highest potential and their highest potential and what we can co-create together. But free will is the big player in humanity, right? And so that's how I address that topic.
Yeah, no, that is, and it can be very difficult, but it's also, it's hard to say, like, let's say another discussion I was having with a good friend of mine just the other day was about death being like, a lot of people, most people, average person would say death is bad, but when you're kind of in a higher vibration, you realize death isn't bad at all. It's just a transition. And sometimes it's actually really good.
Yeah, and again, I agree with that. I mean, it's certainly not encouraging anyone to go seek death in this moment, but it is lacking that negativity, that fear around it when you see yourself in this cycle. And you know, again, people will come to me, asking, why did this person die, especially if a young person has died, right? And I'm not going to sit there and tell a grieving parent, well, I'm sorry your child got cancer and died, right? Like that's just not but it was for the best, right? So, again, that would be so disrespectful. I'd never ever go there. But understanding, life, death, rebirth, and the space in between where a great deal of living and learning happens. No, I certainly don't see death as a place of fear or a place of negativity. Definitely not. We're all part of the cycle.
Right, right. In the same way, certain things like, let's say something bad that happens, perceivably bad to us, like is a learning experience, and through pain do we grow. And so some of these painful experiences we could have chosen knowing that was going to happen, but for our soul to grow. And yes, physically it might be physically painful, emotionally painful, but when you come to the other side, you have this lesson. In the same way that you need to fight the lion to gain the courage. You don't get the courage first, and then to fight the lion, you have to go there super scared. And after you fought the lion, you're like, now you've, have this gift of courage.
Oh yeah, I mean, this is boot camp. You come down, you show up as a human on Earth. This is boot camp. You want the lessons? This is a place to find the lessons, and spoken incredibly humbly, because I'm here in this profession, I guess today, in this lifestyle, really, because I was smacked down. I was smacked down really hard and had to really have a change my life, because I was not on a good path as far as just I was in a completely different career, very science based. I always wanted to be a healer, but certainly none of this. And I was just out of balance. And so I got pretty smacked down. But when I crawled out, because I had that lesson, I needed to seek alternative treatments, and they showed up and changed my life
Mm.
to the
Yeah,
point where my career and everything, right? Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I do really want to hear that story more in depth, and thanks for sharing that. Oh man, I just have so many questions for you. It's so difficult to hone in on a few. Okay, one more, because if I don't ask this, I'm just gonna.
Yeah,
Can,
yeah.
can you have a life experience on Earth, get reincarnated in another world, not Earth, and then
Oh,
later come back to Earth? So in between wasn't like Earth, Earth, Earth. It was like Earth, Earth, somewhere, Earth, Earth.
Yes. So, okay. Short answer, yes. And I've definitely, I have a collection of clients that, you know, feel quite stuck in their human bodies and very much remember other worlds and other lifetimes, and physically are not well put together or not made to handle Earth. And there's a few, there's certainly a few characteristics of when I see these people, I'm like, does this resonate with you? I'm like, yes, it does. Go look up starseeds and galactics, and they come back just going, oh, right? Because they're like, I have definitely lived elsewhere. So yes, we can definitely incarnate places other than Earth, and in experiences other than human. When you talk about linear time, though, here, there, here, that's where things get muddled, because we are so, the human experience is linear time. But when we talk past lives, I'll go with Dr. Brian Weiss, his example. So he's a relatively well-known past life regressionist. And Dr. Brian Weiss explained it, instead of our lives flowing like a river, it's more like we're in a pool. And finally, when you're done the reincarnation cycle, you get out of the pool. But it isn't that one is necessarily in front of another in linear fashion. That's just how, when we're in the human experience, that's how we look at it.
Exactly, and
Yeah.
exactly, yes, it totally does. In physics, they say a ball of yarn, right? That it's
Yes. Yeah.
you could be closer in the next 5 seconds or a split second to 100 years ago, or 1,000 years ago, or 10,000 years ago than you are to 5 seconds ahead. Which brings me to the next question,
Okay.
which is, the uh, the understanding, and just like as you pointed out very astutely, how I was saying like very linear, like life,
Yeah.
other life. Okay, is we're in the world of opposites, so we can't have cold without hot, or up without down, or
Mhm.
black without white. So to have a look into a world that is non world of opposites, like how do you even compute that? Like how do you even
Um,
process that?
and sometimes you can't. Like in the regressions that I have done with people going back to these non-human, worlds and lifetimes, it's there's only so much that the human brain really can process. And I've heard some stories so many times that when they're struggling to process it, I'll offer a little something out because there's some things that are so similar, but people will go and they'll say, I'm supposed to be cold. The temperature is really cold, but it's so comfortable. So things sometimes the human brain tries to make sense and it just can't. I'm like, well, that's 'cause, different body, different experience. Um, Oftentimes these otherworldly lives do not share time in the same way. A blink of an eye and a decade and a millennia are all kind of one and the same in the ability to jump through. So even when we are doing a regression, we can only get what the human brain will get and will process. Some people go into lifetimes that are more crystalline, and how can we really process that? So in the end, the information that we get is only what's helpful for us
Mm.
in this time, because otherwise, that's why we don't remember it all to begin with.
Yes, there's a reason for the amnesia. Now, I
Mhm.
know that you're like I would say, an expert in this. And some people I've heard from other people though that it's not to do past life regression without the aid of somebody like you or something, because there's a lot of dangers in doing so. Is that
um
true?
I would just I wouldn't do it for fun, is how I would put it. People go there, oh, this will be fun. And you want to be aware of why are you doing this? It's not just for fun. First of all, because human history, like bluntly, kind of sucks, right? There's a lot of violence. There's a lot of things that you might see that would disturb you, would upset you. Seeing yourself behave in a way that is abhorrent to you in this lifetime, or seeing yourself receive behavior from someone that you might know in this lifetime that you don't like and you never really knew why, and then going, oh well, this person was quite violent with me. So I don't feel that you're going to ever come up with something that you're not ready to process, but it is, first of all, you do have to get into a meditative state to really receive the information, and you don't want to get shocked out of that by seeing something violent, because that's really disruptive on the system, and it can leave you. It's a fact finding mission, right? When I do like energy healing, you're going to come out feeling fresh and feeling good, and again, but when we're doing a regression, this is a fact finding mission, and you're coming back with facts and then you have to work with them. But if you come back with this stuff and you don't know what to do, and suddenly you're like, well, I saw, I saw myself getting burned at the stake, or I saw myself, in war doing a really violent act, and then you're left with that can leave you in a worse situation than when you started.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't suggest, it's natural human ability. So I would never say don't do that. It's natural, but really be aware of the goal, and before going in.
Okay.
It's not,
It's a
it, it,
very good answer. Yeah. That's what I thought. Yeah, kind of like to be with somebody and guided with somebody who knows, who's an expert. Um, okay, here's a little bit of a different angle on the same
okay.
same thing. How do you explain Donald Trump?
you know, um, the only thing that I'll touch as far as this goes is, so I'm clairvoyant. I see angels. I started seeing angels in 2009. I did not believe in angels. They started showing up. So that was another rip out the ego, right? Um, Everybody has angels around them. Not everybody listens to them, but everybody's got them. And so, it's I have had every possible conspiracy theory on every angle and every side be sent to me to ask my opinion on. And in the end, just toss light at the situation. Approach the world with with an open heart, doing the best you can in your microcosm, because we are going for just critical mass. If I can shift me and my little world, and you can shift you and your little world, then whatever's happening, for us, we're in Canada, so south of the border, um, positive, negative, whatever you think of other people, follow your heart, you heal your space, and we'll see the ripple effects happen.
It is a very good answer. Very, very good. I know. I just, that's good. I'm very satisfied with that answer. Okay. So then let's move on to the next thing is angel guide. And that's really, really cool. So tell me, what do angels look like?
So yeah, because this is like, I didn't believe in angels. I 100% black and white, did not believe in angels. And Archangel Michael showed up to me and he had lots to say. So, you sit there and go, okay, it's an angel standing in the room. I've got a client on the table and he's talking to me about what's wrong with this person, right? So I hit the books and I studied and I learned about angels, and I grabbed every book I could find and took every course I could find. So here's the rundown on angels from my experience, okay? Is they are pure energy. They are always positive. I've never in all these years had a negative angelic experience. They are pure energy. They come directly from source, God, universe, right? And so when you say, what do they look like? They don't have bodies, but they will project their image in a way that you will recognize. So I've had a really great experience with working with someone of a different culture. I had this lovely kind of elderly woman that I was working with, probably in her late 70s, maybe early 80s. And I described this angel that I'd seen. And to me, I come from, the general, Christian background, right? So I tend to see like the Renaissance angel kind of, paintings, right? And so I described this angel that I saw standing with this woman. And she, unbeknownst to myself, had just, I believe the day earlier, elderly Caucasian woman. She'd had a session with a local shaman, right? From our local indigenous people. And this man had described the identical figure, same aura color, everything. But for me, I described wings because that's what I see. For him, the angel did not have wings because she had asked, doesn't it have wings? He says, no, angels don't have wings because in his culture, they don't have wings. So they're going to give you an image that you will understand and recognize. They're not trying to be tricky. They want to work with you. So, I tend to see the angels that come out of paintings oftentimes, but a different culture, different background, you might see them differently.
Yeah, that's super cool. I remember I went to see many, many years ago a shaman, and I entered into, and it was it was in a church. So it was in like the basement of a church. They said, come to see him in this empty basement of the church, and walked down. So it's very like creepy. Like I don't watch horror movies because I get scared, and there's a good reason for it.
Yeah. Okay? You and me both. Okay.
Yeah, because I've seen scary, real stuff. So, and so I go into this basement, and I'm just feeling this like really, really like my spidey senses or whatever going off really strong. So I'm quite intuitive, not to your level of intuitive things, but I'm quite intuitive. So I go in and I start feeling this thing, and then this guy comes over. I won't say his name, and he's dressed normal clothes and everything, and he comes over, and as he's about 5-10 feet away, I stop and I just look at him and I go and say his name. I said, "Listen, I know I've got referred by somebody that you're very, very kind and very strong." I said, "But I have this overwhelming feeling of darkness in this thing, okay? I'm looking around for weapons to defend myself, okay? That's what my eyes are doing, okay? Which is I'm a very peaceful person. So this is really out of characteristic for me. I'm looking around and I say to him, listen, I'm feeling this horrible, really, really dark energy." And he goes, "Oh, don't worry about it. It's just my guide. My guide is death." Literally.
Oh my goodness.
And I was like, wow. I was like, okay. And then
okie dokie. How do you even respond to that? Right?
Right?
No, Did you stay for the session?
So literally, I'm like, okay. And then I said, tell me about the session. And he goes, there's this bed, not even like, now my memory is, definitely not accurate anymore because it was very traumatic, right? So this
Yeah.
bed, it wasn't a bed. It was like now the whole scene, it was like empty. It was creepy. And he's just like, there's this bed there and there's a bucket. And I'm like, what's the bucket for? He goes, because you're going to start puking like all the bad stuff. I'm going to tear it out of you. And I'm like, okay. And then he's like, he goes, you're probably used to light sessions and things like that. And I'm like, yes, I am. And he goes, that's not what I do. He goes, I make you look at your worst fear and head on, which whatever, like Batman, like if you're scared of he's gonna throw all these bats at you, right? And I'm like, holy, wow, like what is this guy? And I was ill prepared, okay, for this. Literally, I pulled out, a certain fee. I pulled out money.
Yeah.
I gave it to him, and I said, I wish you a wonderful day. And I was like, I'm out of here. And then some close friends were like, oh, you should have done it. And I was like, yeah, you know what? Easy to say. Yeah, in retrospect, it should have been like, maybe. But honestly, like,
yeah, if your spidey senses were going off, no way. No way.
I couldn't, like, he's gonna tell me I'm gonna face. He's gonna play my deepest fear and make me face that. Okay, I guess if I win and overcome it, all the better. And if I don't? I'm in maybe a mental institution, and then and then I'm gonna be puking, and then on top of all of that, there's death is there. Like,
yeah.
Wait, like
his partner is death. Yeah.
So it was all too much. It was all too much for me.
Totally.
Yeah. So
I'd have been out of there.
Yeah.
And it might be great for some people. That might be exactly what they're looking for and what they need. But no, that wouldn't have been for me either. Yeah. Second, my spidey senses go off, I'm out. And nausea is something I really don't handle particularly well. So that alone would have probably done it for me.
Exactly. Yeah, that was a crazy
Wow.
thing. Yeah, that was, and you know what? On that subject, and I wonder if you ever had the same. Is that once it happened to me in a hardware store, and once I got the same feeling in a grocery store. And one time I was with my mom and my brother in a hardware store, and I felt this overwhelming evil, like overwhelming. And this is like an afternoon, just a normal day, like 2 in the afternoon. And we walk in this hardware store, and I have it so strong that I turned to my mom and I said, and my mom is really cool and she understands this everything that we're talking about. So I say to my mom, I said, listen, we have to leave. We can't go in here. And my brother kind of like, my brother's like, what are you talking about? I said, listen, I don't know what I can tell you to convince you. I'll give you like money, anything, do 1,000 chores, whatever it is. We have to leave right now. And we left, and I still don't know what it was to this day, but it was so strong. And another time, it was in a grocery store, and it was at that time it was different because it was a person, and there was a person in the grocery store that was so. It's not low vibration. It was just plain evil, like the personification of evil itself. Okay, in the grocery store, and I was with my brother at this point, and I start going to my brother because I'm feeling like so much anxiety, and the person, I could see the person, and I say to my brother, listen, this is gonna sound very, very strange to you, but there's this guy that's 10 rows down. I describe him, and I said, it's possible that I might have to physically fight this person. And my brother's just like, whoa, like, right? Like, how do you sound normal?
Yeah.
Remember, this is the only time. It's not like I go around saying this kind of stuff. It's like the one.
I still get it. Yeah.
So one time in my life, and I look over, and the guy's like way down, like 20 feet away, and I look at him, and he turns and looks me right in the eye, and he knows who I am, and I know who he is. And I was like, wow, it was so crazy. Then we go to the checkout, and I'm shaking. Like I'm shaking. I have so much adrenaline, and I have so much anxiety, and I'm sweating, and I'm shaking, and I say to my brother, "Listen, you back me up. This is like if
Yeah.
this guy comes to me." And it's just what a crazy thing to think of, let alone to say out loud. It was like shocking, and thank God it just went. And the guy, we left, and he turned around and looked me right in the eye with the coldest stare ever,
Wow.
and turned around, and that was it. I never saw him again. It was really, 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 really odd. Yeah. So
No
on,
kidding.
yeah,
Ah,
and
yeah.
yeah, exactly. So on that,
Yeah.
have you ever had that kind of experience of,
Yeah,
profound?
I've definitely had the experience, like, when you describe the hardware store, of being in a location and being like, "I need to get out of here. I can't put a finger on it, but there is something not right here." 100%. I've definitely had that. Um, and sorting, so when it's just a location, it's something vague like that, you know, I've had, I sit there and go, okay, later on, is it a person in this physical space? Is it energy left over from something that happened in this physical space? Um, does this remind me of something that's triggering my life, a past life where something went down that was no good? People seem to love, heritage houses, turn of the century, late 1800s. You couldn't pay me to go in there. That was not a good time for me. I get creeped out every single time. Other kids seem to like Little House on the Prairie. Terrified me. Who gets terrified of Little House on the Prairie, right? So for me, that is definitely triggering. And anytime I'm going to go there, I'm going to feel that. But then there's times when you're going, yes, something went down here and it's bad. You clients of mine are like real estate agents, walk into a home and go, oh, what happened here, right? The intuitive ones. So there's that. And then, yeah, sometimes there's just, someone, people will come in, people that you see, just like you said, kind of randomly, but you're a, highly sensitive person. You're going to connect with their energy and go, whoa, this is no good. And so like in that situation, I would be cutting energy cords and removing psychic attack when you're done. But yeah, I've definitely had those experiences. And certainly, the people that show up, in my office are the sensitive people. Nobody comes for like energy healing if they're not a sensitive person, right? Um, and so I've heard these stories again many times. Many times.